Yo, how's it going, everyone? We are back once again. It is Friday, so you know it's that time. It is the new episode of the Slot 1 Super Podcast. We are here with episode 41. I am your main host for this week, Ningen, and of course with me, as always, my co-hosts. You can see on my, well, it's my left, but my right on the screen. We have Minato's Flash and Dokkan Assets. How's it going this week, boys?
Good. Fun. I had fun with Kefla, I guess we could say.
Yeah, very interesting. We're still in a sort of similar situation to last week, where new things have come out on both versions of the game, but they are things that are already out on the other version of the game. So it's one of those interesting situations now where players on the opposite versions are getting to experience the units that the other guys have already had for a little while, get to try them out.
Is that just global?
Well, yeah, you know, that is normally it's just us, but you know, this time it's you guys get to catch up as well, because it was it's not just Kefla, it's all the Universe 6 sub EZAs as well, right? Because
those also all came out.
Yeah, I haven't put up individual things for them, but we can kind of talk about them sort of all in one go. So we will just go ahead and jump straight in here with the first topic for the week, which you know, we had you gotta love the thumbnail for this week. We got two EZAs that have released, one on global, one on JP, and one of them is really good and the other one not so much. So we're gonna jump straight in and talk about global to start with. So, of course, today we got the EZA for AGL Bardock, the main big ticket EZA for the Freezer celebration. So, hopefully you guys had fun. Good old, we were just talking about it before we started the episode, but good old 30-stage EZAs. You know how much we all love to do those. And yeah, we get the AGL Bardock EZA. So, of course, he was out on JP first. I know we talked about him when he came out on JP originally, but Minato, why don't you tell us, and for anyone who hasn't done the EZA yet and is, of course, super excited because all the EZAs this year have been so good, why don't you tell us about AGL Bardock a little bit?
Dude, this guy just sucks. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to.
No,
I don't know what I'm supposed to say. Like anything like that. This guy is just unfortunately very underwhelming, man. And it's really an issue of they made his base form too weak. I don't know if like they thought it's just a thing where this guy has his damage reduction in his passive, but they didn't like. Instead of making low-class warriors better in general, they didn't do anything with it, or they didn't change the restriction to also include, like, let's say, pure Sage or something. I feel like they made a big mistake, basically restricting him to wanting low-class warriors when they rarely release new low-class warriors characters in general. And on top of that, they know that even like if you want to say like, oh, 23rd World Tournament Goku is still fine, Pathfire Goku is still fine, right? Like realistically, they're not really fine in 9th anniversary content. Now, I think on global, this guy, like, it's funny because on JP, you would assume that he could potentially be better because of the fact that the events are a lot longer, but and that allow him to stack up more, right? But it's just that his stats are so low in comparison, like starting off especially, that even early on in these fights where you need to build up, this guy takes so much damage, even from normals. So that's the issue with this guy, the fact that he can't get his reduction. If he was able to get his like 50% reduction in his base form, like he would actually be quite different. Even without the additional, having the 50% damage reduction as a stacker and him being AGL, like that's a lot of good things, right? But unfortunately, damage reduction does a huge assist there, and without that, he only has his 10% reduction from himself. So not only does he hit like super lightly as well, because of the fact that he's not getting his full 100% attack buff, his defense is also insufficient, and he's not really doing anything. So it's very unfortunate for that base form Bardock. Now, when you transform into Super Saiyan, I think that's a little different story where he has some tech with him. He has the damage reduction. I think it's 36%, I believe, is the number.
Yeah,
'cause
for
he
the
gets
first
18
5
plus 18.
turns. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. 36%. Then he has, I think, a 48% chance to dodge and crit. He has the additional, could do okay damage, decent defenses, right? You could dodge. Like, there is some tech with the Super Saiyan transformed Bardock, but it's like you can't really get him to his heights because you can't stack up with him safely. And because of that, he's also ending up weaker because of the fact that you have to transform him instantly. Then that also leads to situations where you could potentially, even in this long continent JP, run out of his passive, right? Not very often though, but it could potentially happen because you have to transform him instantly, and you get no stacks, so you can also just straight up die. And it's all because that base form sucks. So that's my experience with him. I think the global experience for this guy, because you guys only have Kid Buu for like the really difficult kind of content, and everything else is like Fusions and Masu kind of tier power in terms of bosses. But this guy should probably still struggle because most of those events are very short.
Yeah, Kid Buu seems like I'm gonna do it. I haven't done it yet, but I'll probably do it for a video tomorrow. I was gonna do Bardock versus Kid Buu, and it's one of those things I can't imagine is gonna go very well because he's gonna get one turn against STR Kid Buu. Which if you don't have a low class warrior ally on the rotation and you don't get the hidden potential, he's going to get one super, and then you're going to be in INT Kid Buu time. And realistically, like you're going to want to transform him straight away so that he has the chance to dodge, but you don't want to transform him straight away because he hasn't had any stacks. So he's definitely a unit that's not very good for short events.
Another thing is his base form super attack is a
unarmed super.
It's unarmed.
So
yeah,
does no damage to Kid Buu whilst also buffing him. Yeah, good stuff.
And he gets like what 50k defense.
The thing is, like you said it as well, I think everyone said the same thing when it comes to his passive, right? Like we talk about sometimes when we get bad unit designs or bad EZAs where they need a whole load of different things, or maybe like one change that's like really crazy or something that we wouldn't expect to see. But this guy, literally, you just change where it says low class warrior ally in his passive to pure Saiyan allies or something, and he'd be really good. Like every team you run him on, he'd have his full passive active, multiple supers every turn. Because like I ran him after we EZA'd him today, I ran him against the Buhan red zone, like the Martian power absorption thing, because it's one of the slightly longer ones. But on the first turn, I was running him on God Goku's team. He does have like 11 200% leads or something. He's on tons of teams, which is cool. But yeah, on that team, obviously, you're able to run like Path to Power Kid Goku and the 23rd World Tournament Goku. So he's getting a little bit of extra stats from having a couple of low-class warriors. And by having one of them on the first turn, he did like a triple super on turn 1. So then turn 2, he's already up to like 670k, which is okay for like turn 2. But you got to think on a team where you're not running low-class warrior allies, and let's say, you know, as we said, worst case scenario, you don't get the additional super. That was him after doing 3 supers. So on other teams, you're not going to be seeing that until like turn 7. And having 600k defense on turn 7 is not particularly good. So he just stacks up way too slow. Now, one thing, Theo, I don't know what you think about this, but I've always liked this guy. I know you're a Bardock fan too. I think his animations have aged fairly well, including the transformation. I think his transformation animation is still pretty good. But what are your thoughts about this guy, just in general?
Yeah, I mean, I was in terms of the EZA, I was definitely pretty disappointed that he's not that good, because I know, funny enough, like, I swear we talked about this recently where we were like, yeah, it really felt like for a while, because we kept saying it on the podcast, that like, oh my gosh, the EZAs have been so good recently. Where it was like, you know, even just a couple months before, they were kind of lackluster a lot of the time, or it was like hit or miss type of thing where we would be like, this EZA is the best character in the game, and that's like, yeah, this character sucks. And it was weird though, because it's like he kind of feels like the odd man out in the bunch of like really good EZAs lately, to be honest. Like I feel like they've been doing, yeah, I guess so. But
it's funny you say that.
I don't know. Yeah.
I
But
mean, in
either way,
comparison, Super Vegeta is way better.
No, that's what I was
Yeah.
gonna say, because we were talking
that's
about
what I was
it
gonna
on the
say.
stream
Yeah, I
earlier
feel like
today.
he's even better.
It's like, who would you go? Well, there you go. I mean, you both basically said now, because that was a discussion that came up on my stream earlier today of who is better, Bardock or Super Vegeta. Because I know a
I
lot of
would
people
say,
were not
yeah,
crazy
Vegeta.
about Super Vegeta, but obviously the big
Yeah,
meme
I'd
is
still
that
say he's better.
Bardock's like the worst EZA that we've had this year in terms of like
Yeah.
a Dokkan Fest exclusive, right?
Of course, it had to be our favorite character.
Yeah, I know, right? You look at you got like
Uh,
Kefla, Gotenks, Tech Exchange Boo, even Super Vegeta. Like these guys are all on a certain level of power or higher, and then Bardock, like
It's
Not
see the
there.
thing is that Bardock didn't have like a lot of these really good mechanics that some of these other characters got. Like, Kefla obviously already had the. I think Kefla already had the additional, if I'm not mistaken, right? And the dodge. I don't remember. Did Kefla have the additional before her EZA?
I
See,
don't remember off
can't
the top of my
remember
head.
at the top of my. Let me double check. She did have the additional on the dodge already. She had the multiplicative kind of stats already. She had all that kind of stuff. Gotenks had a lot of like shenanigans with him already. Like a lot of these characters, keep the essence of what they were. But Bardock also ended up keeping the essence of what he was, where he was just a plain stacker that wanted low class warrior characters. He didn't really get good multiplicative buffs. They kind of kept him the same kind of essence of what he was pre EZA. And again, the issue isn't really Super Saiyan Bardock per se, because you can make Super Saiyan Bardock, you can make him look nice, right? If in certain situations, it's just that the base form also kept the essence of what he was before. And I mean, we know when Bardock originally came out, people weren't really a fan of him either because his base form was super weak, right? If you guys were around when, I mean, I know you guys were around when AGL Bardock initially released,
Yeah.
but people in chat back in 2020, I believe, for Saiyan Day when this guy came out, a lot of people did not like this Bardock because his base form was extremely weak and his Super Saiyan form was pretty decent, right? So it's like he kind of is the same as he was when he came out, but just put in this meta. And it's a thing of, unfortunately, it just doesn't really mesh well because you need to be consistently good. You can't be a little undertuned, then become pretty, I would say, almost like a little above average in Super Saiyan. Like you
Yeah.
gotta be good in both forms. So it's
like-
unfortunate for Bardock.
Yeah, people could probably excuse it if, like, when you transformed him, he was like the best unit in the game. But obviously, you
Yeah.
go through, you like jump through those hoops to get him to, where you transform into Super Saiyan, and then he's still like he's all right. Like I would even go as far as to say good on like the lower end of the tier of good. But that's all you get out of it, right? Is he's just good after the unfortunate bait. And the problem is, I think this ties into something that we talk about a lot when it comes to these celebrations, whether it's characters not getting an appropriate banner unit or like not the right character EZAing with another character at the same time and stuff like that. Is if they were going to give this guy, if you want him to his full potential, you have to run him with low class warrior allies. That's perfectly fine. But just buff some other low-class warrior allies characters at the same time. Otherwise, who exactly are they expecting you to run like with him, right?
What do you mean? We got Antora.
A lot of people.
Hell yeah!
It's
baby.
funny. A lot of people were expecting the Great
Great
King
Apes,
Bardock
yep.
EZAs to come for like even during Saiyan Day, and then they never came. So
Yeah. That's what I
Oh,
was
you
going
got
to
a
say.
twang when you said that. I don't know if you heard that. You were like, they never came.
They never came. I don't know, man.
But-
I just
Yeah, they're right there.
yeah.
It's like, come on, EZA those guys.
Right. And that was the other thing too, is like, I don't know. It's always so disappointing, speaking of that bum Tora. It's always just so disappointing because it's like, that is such an easy way to make a Dokkan Fest unit better, is to literally just give them a good support unit and like give them a good buddy with their side banner unit.
Yep.
And it's so weird to me because it's like they know how to do it right. Because like there's some characters that we know, or not we know, but I mean we see that like obviously when they release we're like, yeah, okay, this character is super good for the main Dokkan Fest. And in some cases it's almost like you need them, right? Like Turles's goons, right? Like for them, it's like you practically can't even run the Turles team without having them on the team, right? So it's like clearly that is also partially because the category is limited. But, you know, it's like they know how to make these units, because all the time we see these cases where, you know, we get a really good character that's like, yeah, you almost want to pull until you get both of these guys because the side unit is just that good. So it always like makes me wonder, like, why do they then choose to sometimes just like either make them like not really compatible or just, you know, suck, I guess, you know? It just seems like such a weird decision to me.
It goes back to what we were saying last week as well, obviously, because he released on JP, talking about Rosé, is they gave him a side banner unit on JP, but he's not a unit that helps Rosé at all. Like, he's not even on his team.
Yeah, it's just so silly. Like, if he was a villain, he also would have fit Frieza's. Like, if it was like a, I don't know, like a base, even a base from Goku Black, even though we're getting the Super EZA eventually.
Yeah.
Or if it was a thing where maybe we got Izamasu that becomes Izamasu Goku, and then maybe he was on Inhuman Deeds, and if had Frieza, well, see, Frieza doesn't need Inhuman Deeds, but I don't know, some category. I just a thing where him helping Rosé is what we wanted, like a Rainbow Orb Changer.
Yeah,
but no.
Yeah, that would fix so many of the issues for Rosé if he just had a banner unit that was a Rainbow Orb Changer, and then they decided on JP, well, we'll give him a banner unit, but it's Trunks, and he's not even on Rosé's leader skill. It's like,
you see, it's funny because it's a thing of like, it's Goku Black on GP doesn't really need the orb changer as much as on global, because Goku Black and GP, you run him on Broly's team, and then you have Gogeta Blue, and then you have, you know, if you want, Blue Falcon Goku and Evolution Vegeta, and you have like two pretty good Rainbow Orb Changers. Even Sleepy Beerus is a Rainbow Orb Changer in GP, and he is on Super Bosses. But the global version would have really appreciated getting the banner unit to help him. I think especially Sun. Still would have helped on JP, because maybe you could have ran double Rosé a lot more efficiently. But, you know, you can't really, unfortunately, it just wasn't, you know, what we wanted. It just ended up being the Trunks. And oh god, I just like breathed in and I almost choked him air. I don't know how. I don't know if you heard that, but yeah, this Trunks was actually finished after the other Golden Week units, which is strange. But I think we're getting off topic. At this point, Bardock himself, unfortunately, you know, ended up being a little bit of an underwhelming kind of EZA, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, it kind of went off a little bit, but it's in the same sort of vein, right? It's like I say, if they just gave us low-class warrior buffs, then it maybe wouldn't be so bad. But we're just unfortunately at a point in the meta where even the most recent, like the newest low-class warrior characters, other than this guy, are starting to age out. Like 23rd World Tournament Goku can still be okay. To be fair, actually, on the run that I did today, surprisingly, before somebody on the team revived, he actually did guard every single turn, which is something that I'm not actually that used to. And like Path to Power Kid Goku, you can still kind of get away with running him sometimes as long as he's not getting super attacked. But those are like the only two options realistically that are still even somewhat salvageable, like in the current meta. So this guy definitely needs low-class warrior buffs, but I guess the problem is with the way Dokkan does their categories is there's so few characters that are actually considered low-class warriors, and even characters like, you know, Bardock and Ningen, who you'd think are on the category, are not. So it's just a very small, very limited category. So having a character whose entire passive essentially revolves around running with those units, it just seems like a very odd choice, especially when you look at all those other EZAs that came out at the same time as him. So very, very unfortunate. We've lost Theo again. I think Theo's been having some serious issues in the last couple of weeks with his internet. Yeah. So
yeah. Well, I guess it's just gonna be a 2-man show for now.
Well, yeah, I guess we'll carry on because I mean, he's going to be gutted, I'm sure, because the next character we were going to talk about was the INT Chilled that got his Super Strike EZA revamp to go hand in hand with Bardock. Obviously, we're not going to spend a huge amount of time on this guy. We did talk about him on when he came out on JP. He's an interesting character because I think when it comes to the Super Strike units, because he's a nuker, like if you get a decent turn of him, he can be kind of okay. Obviously, he's on like Frieza's team. What were your thoughts on this Chilled when he came out on JP, Minato?
Mediocre. I don't know. I just think it's a thing where situationally he could be fine. Which, you know, free to play character, I think that for a free to play character, he was actually like relatively pretty nice. But it's just a thing where the team isn't really good enough where you could run some of these, like, I don't know, 6 out of 10 overall characters, 5 out of 10 overall characters, because he obviously doesn't match up to what a summonable character could do.
Yeah.
And if this was like a Super Saiyan 2 Goku or something like that, I don't know, and you could put him on, I don't know, like Broly's team, or potentially even like a team like Beast Gohan's team, and it's like, oh, you know, you have so many of these powerful characters. If you need an extra option, you could always throw that guy on that team. You know, you have use him for fun. But the Shield is a situation where, oh, he wants to be used on Frieza's team, but Frieza's team is not good enough to allow you to like run a character like this and get away with it per se, right? Not that the Frieza team has too many options in the first place, but it's just I guess that's the whole point, right? Muted, you're muted, you're muted, you're muted, you're muted.
Of course I am.
I told him no worries, chat.
But yeah, the team that I'm going to run him on for like the showcase is you've got Dodoria, the support unit for Frieza, Hirudegan's on that team, and then Chilled and the 60% support Vegeta, so he has enough units on the team to get his full passive. But even then, like, you're kind of jumping through hoops just to give some decent setups for Chilled. When realistically, like you said, Frieza's team doesn't exactly have the craziest amount of options. So are you really going to want to, you know, run suboptimal units on like as like half the team, just so you can potentially have like an orb changer for Chilled and stuff like that? So I do agree Hirudegan can be underrated though, but he sells out a lot. It's true.
The thing is that like you're running Vegeta, and Vegeta kind of like, I mean, when he came out, it was like, oh, he could do some pretty decent numbers. That's all I can say.
Yeah, he's not the best of those 60% supports, unfortunately, but
a lot of those characters that didn't get defense on Super.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially for multiple turns, it's like a pretty big difference. And you know, some of those characters, even like the best of the best, like Haba and Gohan, like they're not crazy. They're still good, but you know, obviously they aren't what they once were when they initially came out pre 9th anniversary.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Chilled, it's just he's like a decent character as well. I would give him at best, which is nice for a free character, but
yeah,
we need more options for the Frieza team to really allow you to run a character like this, and potentially another orb changer, like you said, to allow this guy to get his orbs consistently. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he makes his own orbs, does he? Or he has like a chance to at best.
I don't think he does. Yeah, because he
Oh yes, who gets 30% stats for
orbs at all. It's 30% per key sphere and an extra 30% if they're in key spheres. So like on a good turn for him, he hits a pretty decent attack stat, and his post super defense is pretty solid. But that's it. Like, which, you know, like we say, is good for a free to play character.
What I would say is, I do like that he greatly lowers attack. But yeah, I don't know why he didn't make his own in key spheres. I think that's kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he has this 50% crit chance to make that changes STR key spheres to into key spheres, and then bam, he's much better, right?
Yeah,
so
true. But yeah, he's okay for a free to play character, which is, you know, when it comes to free to play farmable cards, I guess that's all we can hope for most of the time. But yeah, reset your Petan, everyone. On Global Petan Battle's back again. We got that set with set 16, which is the one that finally starts bringing in the superhero and Broly movie characters. So
dude, I haven't done Patan Battle in months. It's so boring. I'm sorry.
Bro doesn't like 3 stones. Damn.
Who cares? It's like 5 stones. It's like, oh, I'm missing on 15 stones. Oh no. It's gonna cost me anniversary character. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. Theo's working on getting his internet fixed, so we should have everything back to normal here, hopefully very soon. In the meantime, I feel like it's a funny time to bring this up, right? While we have technical difficulties, clearly the whole place is falling apart, right? So as a quick reminder, if you guys want to help support the podcast, Maybe we can keep it running slightly more smoothly. Who knows? But if you
Help
want to
us
support
pay
us,
Theo's internet bills.
yeah, if you want to support us, if you have any questions, if you have any shout outs or comments, any of that kind of stuff, as always, all donations and super chats will be read out at the end of the episode. So shout out to the couple of people that have put those in already. And yeah, we will get to all of those at the end of the episode. So I know Theo will be absolutely gutted that he missed out talking about Chilled, but there's probably not really much else to say about him. So the one thing we were going to revisit a little bit, we talked about him last week because he came out on JP.
Oh, he's back.
I think he's back. His own version of Chair-chan is back, it seems.
Yeah.
There you go. There
Hi,
he
Theo.
is. Oh, and he's gone again.
Oh, bye, Theo. Oh, hello, Theo.
We're getting there. We're getting there, chat. Don't worry.
He's silent. Oh, well, I guess.
Well, anyway, so yeah, we're going to go on to talking a little bit about Physical Rosé because he actually got his buff on Global, finally. Now, I
Got
know,
him, Dokkan as a style.
I know we were saying about last time, why did he not get his buff at the same time for Global as he did for JP? Global literally had a maintenance like the day he came out on JP, but he didn't. And so, of course, we talked about on last week's episode how long it could potentially be until we see that buff come out on Global. And honestly, I have to say, I'm kind of surprised. Like, I, of course, really wanted it to come out before the anniversary, so we can get a chance to use this guy at his full potential in the anniversary content. But I'm kind of surprised it came out as quickly as it did, because it's... just under a full week later, the buff came out.
Just like why didn't they just put it in last week's?
Yeah.
For thousands of years I've laid dormant. Who has disturbed my... Oh, hey, best buddy. Hello. Yeah, sorry. The internet, what do you call it? There was a guy for another internet company working on like the box that's on the side of our building. And they were, I guess, just unplugging a bunch of stuff to plug in the router for their company. So I don't know, but either way,
Put your camera on, buddy. I'm in your spot.
There we go. Oh, I got you. Yeah, thankfully it wasn't. Lately we've had some issues where someone has been cutting our wire for some reason.
Oh God.
I don't know why, but someone's done some funny shenanigans have been going on, and someone's been cutting our internet wire. But thankfully, that was not the case, because then I would not have been able to come back.
Well, yeah.
But anyway, we back.
It's the Akatsuki spies, right? They heard you talking about Rosé's super attack animation, and they're like, cut this man off.
We can't let him speak another word.
So yeah, Theo, I'm sure you're very disappointed to learn that you missed out the discussion about INT free-to-play Lord Chilled.
Did I miss that? Oh,
do you have any passing thoughts as we move on to Rosé, Lord Chilled? Have you used
it is funny enough, I actually didn't realize he wasn't on Global until like this update, because I saw the card in the files and I was like, wait, Global didn't have this guy this whole time? That's crazy. Yeah. And I think with him,
Global works.
Yeah, he is now the last new Super Strike, right? I think so, Global has them all now. Yep.
Yeah.
So that is pretty cool now that Global also has all of them. It'll be interesting to see. I think the thing going forward now with that is that I'm very curious to see how they will handle like future Super Strikes, or if they're going to do any more or anything like that, right? If they like implement actual like brand new Super Strike characters or something after Chill.
Hey, I doubt it.
I doubt it too. Like I 100% don't think that they will, but I'm hopeful. I guess.
I forgot how good a super attack is.
Well, I mean, it is
a pretty decent one for a free character.
I will say, I do like the one thing that I do think is cool about the Super Strikes is that they're not like, if you're talking about it in the technicality, they're not as good as like a lot of modern free-to-play units. But what I like about the way that they do the Super Strike units is that they make it so that the whole point of them is that you're basically like making a modernized version of that old Super Strike animation. And so they kind of try and keep the essence of that old like Super Strike style and sort of modernize it a little bit. And I think they always do a pretty good job with that. So I know they did a good job with Chilled on that too. So that's always cool. I like that they do that because it kind of like, it's less of like, oh, we're trying to give it anime accuracy and more of like it's sort of paying homage to a unit of old, you know, while also giving them a little bit of fresh coat of paint. So I think that's pretty cool. But anyway, yeah. Enough about that rat. Bardock beat that guy too easy. He doesn't get any screen time. Yeah, Rosé.
Yeah, so Rosé got his buff on global. I tested him out post buff. Obviously, you guys know, talked about it many times. I'm a big physical Rosé defender. It was definitely fun using him with his with his buff. Minato, I know we were talking about it a little bit before the stream, so I wanted to give you a chance to give us your thoughts. I know we talked about it when he came out on JP last week, but have you warmed up to Rosé at all, or what are your thoughts now for him?
Well, I mean, he's definitely better, right? Which is a good thing. I think that before I probably wouldn't have even put him in top 10 for my personal tier list ranking. But that extra super attack does a lot, like I said last week. Again, it's a thing where because the guaranteed additional supers when you do those attacks, they're at the end of everything else. So, like, you're not getting like an extra 7 mil attack stat at the beginning of the turn, right? You're getting an extra like 30, 40 mil attack stat, or not 40 mil, like 30, 34 mil or so, like that kind of range at the rainbow level. You're getting an extra like just attack stat of that at the end. Then you're getting probably an extra like 300 to 400k defense because the extra 30/33% attack and defense in his passive, depending on if you're transformed or not. Well, usually transformed, that's when you hit that like 30 mil attacks at the end.
Yeah.
Then you're getting the other 30% from the super tech effects. And he just starts hitting like super good damage, you know, once you actually get like the 10 attacks in that turn. Like it could be really, really crazy for the Rosé. And even in his base form, right, getting the extra defense scales super well with his damage reduction, even though it's just 30%, still getting an extra like 300k ish range defense. When you have 30% reduction, that'll help quite a bit against a lot of these bosses like super attacks and stuff like that, especially. This guy obviously doesn't have problems getting normals or taking normals for the most part. So yeah, I think that he is actually quite nice. I just feel this guy is kind of in a very similar spot still, just because the domains can't overlap. He gets a lot more powerful when he gets his domain, even though you kind of do sacrifice potentially some defense. I think with the extra super attack now, like that helps quite a lot in terms of this guy living some super attacks that he may not have been able to survive before once he gets a bunch of these attacks off in his domain transformation kind of thing going on there. And from there, he will also be able to provide his own Rainbow Key Spheres. But it's a thing where Rosé still looks good, but it's just like you are still going to transform Broly. Broly is still going to be the much superior character when he's transformed. So Rosé ends up getting trapped to his normal pre-domain state, I think, for a good majority of circumstances. And that's just how the team works, because Rosé wants to be on super bosses, or else his base form is kind of like he gets touched with the super and he dies in a lot of situations, right? Because he doesn't have any of his damage reduction after attacking, and his defense at most gets to probably like 1 to 1.5 mil range, which is not enough to live some of these supers anymore, like just pure defensively. Just doesn't cut it if you're running them on another team without any super bosses allies, right? So you kind of have to run them on that team, and it's just a little unfortunate because of that. And when we get the domain revamp, I could see this guy go up a lot higher, but for me, I think he's just basically similar to AGL first form Frieza, and the fact that he's restricted to a team. But it's a thing where obviously I think the super bosses kind of team is in a much better spot, and you don't have to run full super bosses. You still have like 1 or 2 units you could use as leeway. Like you could throw Blue Gogeta from the 9th anniversary on the Broly team. You could throw Blue Goku and Evolution Vegeta as well. You could have like 2 Rainbow Orb teams just floating around.
Yeah.
You have Kid Buu now.
Kid Buu, yeah.
You could throw Beast Gohan. There's a good amount of extra characters you could throw on the team, and obviously that'll help things go a lot smoother, which is, you know, a benefit again to running that Broly team. Now, I did find an issue where you could run double Rosé, but then I feel like obviously the team is significantly worse because you don't have those extra options.
Yeah.
And if you try to run like a double Rosé rotation, you could theoretically one turn some of these phases, but then if the boss supers Rosé even before like he attacks and Rosé has like the 66% reduction, Rosé still only has like 200k to 300k defense start of turn. So he ends up getting one shot regardless. Like I had set up the rotation of both Rosés versus Beast Gohan. And the thing is that Beast Gohan super hit Rosé, the friend. I think the friend was like, what, 79% or so max links linked up with the other Rosé. I might have even had support, but he just still got one shot for about 750k damage. And even if he didn't get one shot, he got sealed or he got stunned by that Beast Gohan boss regardless. So it's a thing of, well, you know, running the Rosé leader and trying to get that rotation is very difficult to do when you're in a circumstance of all these bosses now could seal or stun you, or even if Rosé gets like defense lowered, right? That'll take a big impact to him because even though he has so much reduction, he still has so little defense before he attacks. Which is an issue I found with running the like a double Rosé rotation. So again, that was more of a test for me to see, okay, how good is that going to be? Still not really a fan of that. I think that just doesn't really work out, unfortunately, in the most difficult content. But I feel like I do like him again. Still, overall, I think the thing about him is that I never like I joke around sometimes and I'm like, oh, this guy's a fraud. And his design kind of still aggravates me a little bit with kind of him not doing what he wants to do sometimes, with the Rainbow Orb changing, not being in his base form, the Super Boss's restriction. But when you get him looking good, he could do really good stuff. It's just kind of situational, and that's what it's really come down to. I feel like, you know, I know a lot of people would, especially a lot of people haven't used this character really recently, and a lot of people may look at me like I'm insane, but I feel like I would say STR Gamma 1 with the anniversary equipment and linked with the LR Gammas that came out is a character I would choose to run over this Rosé. I would say that Gamma 1, he's supporting, he's doing a lot of things, like just as a comparison. And I guess, you know, it's just a thing where people haven't used him, like especially if you're a global player, you may be listening and you're like, crazy, but like that Gamma 1 is like such a good aging character, and that's what that made me realize, where that Gamma 1, he has 50% reduction, but he's getting to like that, how to explain it, like 1.5 even above defensive level, you know, very consistently with the LR Gamma 1 and Slot 1, giving him the extra defense support. It's kind of crazy with all those links. I guess it's insane. But it's a thing where you could also say if Rosé got the true partner he needs, maybe he could even be better on that level. And it's just a thing where Rosé still isn't in the best setup that he could possibly be with the domain update, with a really, really good new partner. Fusion Zamasu is like a still decent option, but he's not crazy. Like, you know, like comparatively, like let's say Fusion Zamasu compared to the LR Gammas, right? And the biggest reason I brought out the comparison is because a good partner could do so much for a character like this. So that's what hopefully we're gonna get with the super easy for physical Goku Black, but still really good. I think the update helped him quite a bit. It is kind of funny that he was not working as intended, but I see a chat saying this where it's kind of like a clip unit. You see someone bring out like a clip of him one-shotting or one-turning the like one of the Gogeta Luffy's, and you're like, oh my goodness, he's so good. And it's like, yeah, he looked good there. But it's funny because I saw a clip of him one-turning the Super Saiyan Tech Gogeta part of the fight, and then it's a thing of, okay, that's cool. That looked really awesome. And then I looked at the team. I'm like, oh, you're just dead next turn regardless in the STR Gogeta phase, because the team you have to run double Rosé, and the team was so much significantly worse. It's just and you couldn't transform Broly because his domain's up. He has no intro. But yeah, I think the consistency for him, like someone in chat said right now, got a lot better post updates with the extra defense, the extra attacks, etc. And it helped him quite a bit. So yeah, I just wanted to lay out all my final thoughts of Rosé. I think some of the things I said here didn't really cover last week because I had more time to experiment and use them.
Yeah.
And this is my opinion as JP, right? As a JP player with JP content, I think on the global version, Rosé is like able to cook pretty well overall. So
yeah, it's only like we said last week, he gets hard countered by Kid Buu because all of his super attacks are unarmed supers. So he's kind of useless there. But
the thing that's funny is that the super attack that he gets, technically you could argue it hurts him. But if you get Rosé a lot of Rainbow Keisters and he's doing a lot of normals, he could still actually do some pretty decent damage. If you have like a full Rosé and you don't domain with him.
Yeah, that'll be the
right?
time
That
where
could
you
be
get the worst possible luck and just get loads of additional super attacks. But yeah, his normals will still do some decent damage. Because yeah, I will say, like, as a global player, like, aside from that Kid Buu event, which he just, you know, obviously cannot work very well in general, I still think he's very good and very effective for all the content that we have. So I definitely am looking forward to trying him out in the anniversary stuff. Obviously, as the anniversary, you know, the early anniversary content starts coming out, I'm sure he'll still be really good in all of that. And then it's just a case of the hardest events that we get from the anniversary is where he can potentially start to falter a little bit. Yeah, but it's definitely a fun
I would
unit to
say
use.
he's super fun is what I would say. Right, you know, I feel like I tried not to like rag on him too much because the thing is that I know a lot of people have used this character and a lot of people know the strengths. So I just want to bring out, or it's a thing of, I don't want people to get too allured by the clips that you could see where you could do so good and just ignore the faults of the character, because I think a lot of people do that, especially when it's fan favorite characters like Rosé. I love Rosé, but I'm not gonna ignore like the inconsistencies he has sometimes, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people try to look past that sometimes. But
We call that coping in the business.
you could still make him do really good things even in the hardest 9th anniversary content. You just might need a little bit of luck on your time sometimes, right? You know, maybe you need this circumstance, the boss literally can't super me. If I had that turn where Beast Gohan, even though he usually supers you instantly, if he decided not to super me until after I attacked, I probably could have still won that very turn, but it's a situation where he supered me instantly and I died, right?
Yeah.
Or you could just be like, well, I'm not even going to run double Rosé at all. He's going to be a floater in my Broly team. And then he looks perfectly fine because in this situation, she's very rarely going to get supered at the end at all. So Rosé is still able to cook, even if you don't use his domain. So that's a thing. That's wanted to point out real quick.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Do you have any final thoughts on Rosé, Theo? I know you're not the biggest fan of his animations, but just the unit overall. Now that he's out on JP, I'm going to assume you either didn't summon on his banner or didn't go too crazy.
No, I did not drop a single summon on the banner.
That's fair.
Not at all.
We have tickets.
I'm a certified Rosé
hater. Hey, you know what?
sir.
We have tickets to Dokkan Assets. We have the tickets.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we do. That's true. Is that banner live right now?
Yes.
It is?
Did you do your
Let me
missions this
multi right
week?
now. I did.
Okay, yeah, the banner's live.
Yeah. Let me see. Well, I'll do a multi right now. Yeah, that is true. Technically, I did summon on him last week because I summoned on the ticket banner last week, but I did not summon for him on his actual banner. I will say I was a little bit tempted only because I don't have Android 21. However, I feel like, probably they'll implement something which will be useful, but I feel like with how many good Majin Power units we have at this point, I don't really think she's necessary for me, because I've been able to beat all the Majin Power missions just by using a bunch of other Buu characters, because there's so many good ones with the whole Majin Buu Saga celebration we just had. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll pull her eventually though. Plus I'm saving my coins at the moment.
Yeah, her real strength comes from the fact that you basically are just running like a bunch of Boo characters, but you can also run like Bulma on the team because of her leader skill. So yeah, her team can be pretty good, but yeah, she's definitely not a needed character with some of the buffs and stuff like you say we got from Golden Week. That Martian Power team is looking pretty spicy, so good times all around. So that brings us on to, obviously this was kind of the bridge between the global and JP version, right? Because he just came out on JP, just got his buff on global, but that of course transitions us into the other unit that I wanted to talk about. I only brought up the art for the main unit here, but we can talk about all of the sub EZAs as well. And that is of course that with the continuation of the Rosé celebration on the JP side, that means we also got on JP the EZA for STR Kefla. So this is kind of funny. This is what we were talking about at the very beginning of the show, right? So Kefla's EZA came out on global as a global first as part of the Rosé celebration. And then the next EZA that released in terms of the timeline was on JP. That's when the Bardock EZA came out. So I think people already looked a bit negatively on Bardock because of course he came out after Kefla had just come out on JP, on global, which meant she was going to come out later on JP at some point. But Bardock was dropping and was, just noticeably straight away, even from reading his details, right, considerably worse than Kefla. But now she is on JP, so you guys get to use her and try her out in the various different content. I'm interested to know, because I think I did some brief testing back when I was still doing a little bit of private server stuff. But I'm interested to know your thoughts on her and how well she does in the anniversary content. Because obviously in the Boo Saga Red Zone, against some of these hardest hitting bosses, especially Kid Boo, who, we know has the potential to be one of the hardest hitting bosses with his full build up. She certainly can be taking some damage if she's not dodging, but her damage output is pretty wild. So Theo, I don't know if you want to start off. I don't know if you've had much of a chance to use her. If not, any of the other Universe 6 ECAs. What are your thoughts on these guys coming to JP now?
I have unfortunately not gotten a chance to use them. However, I did actually look into them quite a bit when they came out to global, because STR Kefla is a character that I was pretty excited to get an EZA for sure. And so I'm glad that finally on JP, because funny enough, this was like one of the first times where it was like, how usually when like hard content comes to both versions, and then we're like, just run this, that, and the other unit. And it's like, oh, well, global doesn't have those units. And it was like this time that was the case so many instances where it's like, oh, just run Kefla. And it was like, we don't have her. So it was nice that, we finally ended up getting her. Obviously, I'll let Minato talk about the 9th anniversary content and whatever. But yeah, she's really good. She seems powerful, at least from the connection that I could make. She seems like she'll definitely be like bare minimum, like usable, if not pretty good, in the events and stuff like that. So I'm definitely excited to use her. And the rest of those EZAs as well. Obviously, I know the big one that everybody probably talks about is Tech Kefla, because of course she's, it's Tech Kefla, enough said, I suppose. But yeah, I know it was on global too, but I will say before I throw it over to Minato, it was pretty cool. I did not look on global when Kefla came out at this, but it is cool that when you beat the EZA for Kefla in a mission, they just give you all of the sub EZA medals. I was like, dude, we need this for every EZA, because nobody wants to go back and farm those stupid sub EZA medals where you have to like go back and do the stages like more times than you have to do the normal EZA, basically. So some of the ones, the way they've been doing it more recently has been a lot better. But yeah, I hope they do that more with the missions where they just give them all to you, because that was super nice. But yeah. Anyway, that's my thoughts. I'm also, funny enough that Minato said this, I'm gonna do my weekend summon right now and see what we got.
Fun. I hope you get
good luck.
I don't know.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine?
It's definitely not impossible, right? But I feel like when it comes to Kefla, I do like her. I think that she's pretty powerful. I think that oh, you got nothing on the animation. That sucks.
Yeah, that is an F.
When it comes to Kefla and the GP content, I think that she performs well, right? I do like that she's able to build up obviously quite fast, right? Even in Super Saiyan Kefla, she's able to get like over a mil defense. I think in base from Kefla, there's some situations where she could reach basically about a million defense or so. She has her dodge ability in her, so I think that plus like the very quick burst damage she's able to do even starting off is really really good. No, I think that I've seen a lot of arguments. I said it, I made a tier list video like a day or two ago, and in that video I was like, yeah, I see a lot of people were comparing her to Gotenks, and I see why people were comparing her to Gotenks. I feel like her overall output is stronger, but there's the things of her getting the 6 orbs. I think a lot of global players thought that Gotenks was better, even. But I feel like I personally would say I like Kefla better. I don't think it's like a big Grand Canyon difference. A lot of people in my comments were like, Kefla is just clearly better. And I'm like, no, not necessarily. I think there are some pros and cons between the two characters. But if I had to say between the two, I think Kefla is looking pretty good. And I think one thing is, I think on JP we have the physical topo team, and I actually really liked using her on that team. That team is pretty strong, right? And you also have a lot of Rainbow Orb Changers. You have both the topo leaders, who are, of course, Rainbow Orb Changers. Then you have Blue Falcon Goku and Evolution Vegeta, who is a Rainbow Orb Changer. And you just have 3 floating around, so Kefla is pretty easily able to get her orbs. And on top of that, she's able to really unleash her power. Now, the only issue with that team is that, I just think in general, if you want her to look at her absolute best, you have her linked up with like AGL Kale. But it's like, well, one, there's no AGL Kales in the friends list. And 2, AGL Kale is nothing really crazy anymore. So even though she still looks really good on that team, it's a thing where she's still not looking at her best. And even then, I still think she's kind of better than Gotenks, which is really cool. But it's a situation where I couldn't really run her with like STR Kaba or some of these other Universe 6 characters because of the fact that I can't find any friends for that team, and a lot of the characters there are a little too weak. I've tried to run Kaba, but it's a thing where there's not really a lot of STR characters I would really want to go out of my way to run on that Topo team. But that's my opinion, and I feel like she just does so much damage. It's really crazy, especially in Super Saiyan 2. She transforms like a turn earlier than Gotenks as well.
Yeah.
I think that turn 5 transformation, pretty good. And with that in mind, she's able to get to situations where she's doing like 420 to 25 mil attack stats, right? Just like back to back to back to back. And she's just so utterly powerful. She's great. She's great. Absolutely fantastic EZA character. And honestly, now with her release, I actually am hoping that we get like a slot 1 LR Super Saiyan 2 Kefla. I guess the only thing there is that, like, what team would I really run her on? I guess I could run her on, like, because, like, what 200% teams is she on exactly? If I take a look here, she's on the Super Saiyans 200% team, Fusion Zamasu Rosé's team, Super Saiyan 3. Super Saiyan 3 Angel Goku. Like, imagine a situation. Well, I guess the only thing is that he wouldn't have a Buu Saga ally, right? I guess if you're running a rotation there. I guess on the Rosé team, like you have both Rosés as a floater, then you have a rotation of the 2 Keflas. That could be pretty cool, but you could also just still run them on Broly's team under a 170% leader skill, and they still probably cook very well. So something like that I think would be pretty cool, and then it makes sense. They fit Rosé's leader skill. A lot of the times the Part 2 alerts do fit that. And I guess ideally, like, obviously, it would be like a character where it could lead Kefla, but it wouldn't be a 200% leader skill. It'd be like 150%, so it wouldn't really matter there. But yeah, I think that LR Super Saiyan 2 Kefla would be really cool to pair up with this Kefla. Maybe she could even be a Rainbow Orb Changer and just like help out with there, but who knows? Like a Rainbow Orb Changer that helps out with this Kefla and Rosé.
Yeah.
Could be kind of cool, actually. So we'll see what happens. But I do like this Kefla quite a bit, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, she's definitely decent. Now, in terms of the other Universe 6 sub EZAs, so I believe it's the whole batch. It's like Tech Kefla, STR Kale, INT Vados, and is it Physical Champa, and then like INT Hit as well? Is it all of those?
No, Physical Champa came out like years ago, dude. What are you?
Okay, I don't know what
You said Physical Champa? What?
I think it's because I made a Universe 6 team for a challenge run video the other day, and someone said about using him, and I just completely forgot when he got his EZA. But
my goat
a Physical Champa EZA now, that would be like one of the worst EZA releases ever.
Yeah.
I need a buff for Physical Champa. He's
Exactly.
the
Physical
goat.
Champa
I
mentioned.
remember using him so much back in the day. I remember when his Awakening came out, man. He actually like that's one of the units I feel like at Dokkan that's like a unit that you don't think that people would be hyped for, but was actually so hyped just because of his usability. So
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I wish, honestly, like I know it won't happen, but if he got a sub EZA, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I
Or
think
a sub
that,
EZA, super EZA, you know what I meant.
Yeah.
again, the Universe 6 EZAs are good. It's just that I don't think the team is good enough to really run, and you can't really
Right.
find any friends. So I didn't really have any chance to really use it.
At the worst possible luck that you could have. I mean, I suppose there is still slightly worse, but I made this Universe 6, this is the challenge run I was talking about. Well, I got confused about Champa, but I did a challenge run using Kale's team versus I think it was Kid Buu, just to see if like we could actually do it with but not just Kale's leader skill, fully Universe 6 only. And with the way the team build was, and because of the way her passive works, that Tech Kefla, obviously she's one of the sub EZAs. She's very, very good now. Depending on how you build the team, it is very possible, if you're running the right units, to have her basically have 100% dodge. But I think I was running Carbear on the team and maybe somebody else that wasn't also a Peppy Gal, I can't remember. So with the way her passive stacks up, she had a 96% chance to dodge. And that 4% dodge came in on like a slot 1 normal from Kid Buu, who of course is INT and she's Tech. So she took like 700k from a normal attack that she didn't dodge. 4% chance is to not dodge. She had a 96% dodge chance and got hit by that attack. So that team desperately needs a Dokkan Fest Kefla, because
that sounds like some Pokemon crit rate type of thing, where it's like, oh yeah, this move has like a 95% chance to hit. We'll be fine. Miss.
Yep. Well, that's funny.
Crazy.
That's why I always joke about like when that happens, because you think about like, you think about the times you run a support unit on your team that has like a 50% chance to dodge built into their passive, and you've given them full dodge in the hidden potential, and then they don't dodge. And then you've got this character that has like a 4% chance to get hit, and they get hit. It's like, bro, come on. So my character, I can't dodge when I've got a full build, and then the other one is the I'm getting confused with the INT Goku. That's why I'm thinking about it the other way around. We talked about LR Super Saiyan 4 Goku. Our boy always manages to get a level 5 dodge. Yeah, that's it. I'm thinking about it the wrong way around in terms of dodging. But yeah. 4% chance to get hit, and she got hit. So you love to see that. But that does lead me to what I was saying about the STR Kale, though. Kale got her sub EZA as well. And she kind of suffers where Kefla kind of gets away with it, is because the leader of the team for that Universe 6 team is a Kale. So it's very easy for Kefla to have a Kale on rotation with her. That STR Kale, there's not really a lot of like meta relevant Kefla units at the moment. So I find like she can be good if you have her on rotation with Kefla, but it's very difficult to get them together, because you kind of want Kefla being like a slot 1 unit on one of the other rotations. So if you put the two together, that can work quite nicely. But then you have two AGL Kales floating around. Like you have Kefla, who you can't really put in slot 1 unless you're just going to roll the dice on the dodge chance. So yeah, that team definitely needs some more buffs, but it's nice to get the sub EZAs. Of course, JP, as we Minato mentioned, right, we're going to get a part 2 LR. The speculations, there are many, of course, but one of them is that it could be a Kefla, thanks to the art that was supposedly quote unquote leaked on Global on that banner, whereas a very slightly different image of Kefla. and then they changed it. I was like, you guys didn't see that, right? We changed it back to something else. So,
right.
That's very silly.
Because
Very
that
silly.
art, you know, Theo, of course, I'm sure that art is not from like something else, right? Like a story event or anything. It's just a new Kefla image that we'd never seen before. So, but maybe that's going to be her SSR art or something. Obviously, we don't know as of yet. So, I'm not sure. Nothing else. That's the only thing I was aware of releasing on JP when I put the stuff together for today. I don't know if there's anything else that's come out that we haven't talked about yet for JP.
I mean, we could talk about the SBRs, I guess, but that's really it.
We got 2 of those on Global today as well. Kamehameha, ESBR, and then Time Limit, normal SBR. They were both very straightforward. Funnily enough, I think the Time Limit one, I was quite surprised. It's one of the first ones I've seen in ages where the first fight was only one enemy. Usually that's something that happens right at the end, but... Yeah,
it's funny because Global doesn't have the AGL Go tanks. GP had that AGL Go tanks when the stage came out.
Oh yeah,
the EZA that came out.
I used them non-EZA, and oh boy,
he still does fine, right?
Stage one against Tech Kid Goku, he takes like 300k from normals, so that's
that's fun. But no, the Go tanks did pretty good. I think for me when I did that stage on GP. So if you're having struggles with that stage, I guess you could wait a little longer and you can get some. Well, I mean, I guess you're gonna get like Gogeta Blue during the anniversary as well. I had, so that's another thing. But yeah, the stage 2, the hit stage came out on GP.
Oh yeah, because we still don't have stage 1 available. So
I haven't tried it, but it's just a nuking event. From what I saw, it's pretty easy, so not a big deal. UI Goku Burst Mode came out. That was in Global a while ago. Haven't tried it, but again, from what I saw, it was pretty simple, so not a big deal either.
Burst modes are usually quite fun, though. I do think they are a nice little addition, right? Especially because I like to I do my videos where I get like whatever the required score is, which is usually the 6,000 points, and then I'll always have one attempt at like putting all the modifiers on and just seeing how far you can actually get, which with the difficulty cranked all the way up, which is kind of crazy, especially for some of those old Dokkan events, which of course Dokkan events have not really been that difficult for quite some time. So putting all those modifiers on, going back into some of those older events and then seeing seeing how much damage you're taking from some of the bosses is quite funny. But now obviously we talked about Bardock a little bit because he just released on Global. We do have upcoming for Global next week. It comes out on Wednesday. Global is getting the legendary Frieza event, or the Fighting Legend Frieza, earlier in the schedule than it was released on JP. I believe, did it come out for Topo's celebration, Topo was after Frieza?
Yeah.
Which is obviously weird because it makes sense to release the Frieza event during a Frieza celebration.
The image for the event was finished, or like it was like, it's weird. I think Rick made a tweet about it where it's like it seemed like it was going to release in March.
Yeah,
with the Frieza
it was supposed to come out with Frieza. Yeah,
for some reason it didn't, and then it came out on Frieza Global, which makes sense, right? So
I'm glad they put it with Global. Oh, that makes sense. That reminds me. Speaking of Topo and Frieza related shenanigans,
does Global have the pre-nerfed Frieza, or did it have the nerfed Frieza?
I actually don't know.
I don't know.
What were you saying? I
was gonna say, you know what? I kind of forgot that I thought was a bit of a strange decision too. Speaking of which, is that this banner, Global got the Super Hercule statues when that came out with Topo, right?
Yeah.
Which was a little strange. Like, it's not like anything that is too, I guess insane. But I was just thinking, like, why did they change it? You know what I mean? Like, why not just keep it on Topo's banner? I don't think it really hinders anything, or it doesn't really make that big of a difference. Banner's
different.
I guess
the
only thing I could think of was it really feels like with Frieza's banner, they just pulled out all the stops to try and get people to summon on it.
Discounts,
probably just bait. Guaranteed step, a free multi, you get free Kais, and you can get the Super Saiyan Hercule statue, which obviously that's the only way to get it on global currently.
And Trunks was put in the
Yeah.
banner.
And Trunks,
And
yeah,
Trunks
I mean,
is from the banner.
it's like we said last week when we talked about the Frieza banner. Like, if Frieza was actually a really good, like, must-have unit, then this banner would be insane with the amount of, like, extra value that they put into it. But obviously it is, they're just pulling out all the stops to try and get people to summon right before the anniversary. Which, I mean, at the end of the day, if you wanted to summon on that banner, if you're someone who did want to summon for Frieza, I mean, there you go.
Whoops.
It's quite, I mean, you got a great banner for it. That's all I'm going to say. Like, the
True.
amount of value you get out of it is great, but obviously you should probably not be summoning for Frieza. It's probably a bit late now for anyone who did decide to go in.
Don't summon. Well, too late.
Oh, well. Yeah. But yeah, anniversary is... well, actually, it's funny because, of course, today is the 7th of June, so it won't be a Friday, but exactly a month from now, it will be the 7th of July, which is the actual like global anniversary date, right? Like the last few years in a row, the
crazy.
global banner has come out on the 7th of July. So with this episode, we are
Oh.
a month away today from the actual
Actually,
anniversary banners coming out, which is kind of crazy.
well, the banners might come out on the 9th. I saw a post about that. Sometimes the banner used to drop 2 days after.
Man, I hate it when they do that. Like,
it might be
imagine
the
starting the biggest celebration of the year. It like officially starts, but then it's like, oh yeah, the banners don't come out until tomorrow, which has happened before. Which
I
is like,
forgot.
why?
Yeah.
I forgot what it. There was something
Yeah, I
about
don't
it. I saw a
understand why they
post
do
about
that.
it. Where it's going to how do I explain it? I saw a post about it. Essentially, is all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I did see somebody talking about it. I don't
I think
remember who it was.
like slightly Annie. I think it was Annie.
Yeah, it might have been.
It's the thing
Annie,
about the tickets or whenever they like expire
Yeah.
or whatever. So
Yeah, I think something about the tickets actually that Global is getting, or the ones that you can buy, because there are tickets available to buy.
Yeah, it was the Pilaf packs, wasn't it?
Yeah, the PLAF packs that come with
Yeah.
tickets for the Gogeta banner and the Broly banner, and there's like weekly packs available up until the anniversary. So if you buy them all, it works out quite good value. I mean, we talked about this before when it comes to ticket packs and stuff for Global. If you do end up buying all of those ticket packs, I think because you can buy them 5 times. They're available once per week, and it adds up to something between like somewhere between like $50 and $20 if you buy all of them. But that gives you 10 tickets for both banners. So it's essentially the equivalent of like 100 stones, which obviously if you buy stones, you're not getting 100 stones for $15. So it's pretty good value, especially for people who have been saving up their the actual dragon stones, thinking about Beast and Part 2. If you're someone who spends on the game, then picking up some extra tickets so you can actually do some summons for Broly and Gogeta is definitely quite the interesting or quite intriguing concept, right? So if you're someone who spends, I would say I'd recommend getting those ticket packs. I mean, I picked up the first one. I can't remember when the second one actually is available again, whether it's Friday. I can look in the shop now, but
yeah, it was kind of funny, by the way, with those ticket packs. Because like in the global news, they literally just said all of the banner units that are gonna be on the anniversary
full list,
banner, which is so funny. Like, that makes sense.
I think that's fair.
You know,
It's like now anyway. So
it's like, yeah, it surely, if you know, obviously, if you're like a random player, maybe it would be like, holy cow, you know, this is kind of crazy. But I mean, like, it is the anniversary, so I guess it kind of makes sense why they would do it. And obviously, I guess for the sake of advertising, right? It's probably like, I don't know, maybe they have to do it or whatever. But it was kind of funny. And not to mention, right? I mean, it's happened a couple times on Global now. But it is sort of funny that they haven't had any like grand reveal for the card art. They just are like, yep, here's the art, you know? And it's like already just in a bunch of tweets and stuff. I'm just like, I see.
Yeah, it's funny because like
interesting.
Because we said before like a few times in various different topics and that, like how people sometimes don't realize that there's a lot of people that aren't on Twitter and aren't on the Reddit and stuff like that, so they don't necessarily know like everything that's going on. And like, imagine logging into the game. I'm just checking when the announcement got added, because I think they got added last week. So it was the 1st. It was on the 1st of June. the news thing came up about the tickets, that's when they became available. I did just double check the shop, by the way, so if you were interested in those tickets, it resets tomorrow. Is when the second week ones are available, so you've got like 3 hours or something, I think it is, to get the ones for this week. But imagine like you're someone who doesn't follow any of the news or anything, and you're maybe someone who doesn't, you don't even follow like what comes out on JP, and then it's just like, right, well, here we are, it's the 1st of June, only a month away from the anniversary, can't wait. And then you open the news and it's like, oh, 9th anniversary countdown packs are available, and then here's like the Broly and Gogeta SSR arts, and then the full list of every unit that's on the banner, and that's how you find out. That would be kind of funny.
I'd be going crazy.
It's actually really funny now that I think about it, the fact that it is Gogeta and Broly, because it reminds me of that thing that we talked about. I know we mentioned it on a previous episode about when the movie came out. And if you'd gone to see the movie and avoided spoilers completely, and then they literally gave out leaflets in like the lobbies of the cinema that had Broly and Gogeta on them. So you could have avoided spoilers all the way up until going to the cinema, and then you like buy a drink and someone hands you like a piece of paper that has blue Gogeta on it. It's like, oh, gee, thanks. And then literally the news. I mean, it does just show the SSRs, so it'd be kind of funny if that was your first introduction to the anniversary units, but I guess it doesn't. You could still be surprised by the fact that it's they transform into full power and blue. But
look in chat right there. It was Rick who posted it.
Oh yeah.
So according to the timestamp,
July 9th,
July 9th, 5 GMT. So it's a bit earlier than the normal banner time as well. Yeah. So it's like an hour and a half earlier than banners usually drop. So that's interesting. So the 9th. So that'll be the Tuesday. So Tuesday morning. So late Monday evening if you're in the US for the anniversary banners. So obviously, I mean, we'll have an episode which will be on Friday the 5th. So obviously by then we'll have, much more concrete info. Stuff will probably be announced in the game as well. Obviously the countdown celebration will still be in full swing at that point. So, but yeah, that's interesting to know that it's because if you can go back and look on the wiki and stuff, the last couple of years in a row, you look for the anniversary characters and they all come out on the 7th of July because that's the anniversary for Global. So it's kind of strange that they've changed it because in the past, it's one of those things, like I say, it's always been that date, regardless of what day of the week it was. So it's kind of interesting that it's on a different day. So bit strange, but typical. So we in Global, we have to wait all this time, and there's like now we got to wait another 2 days from what we expected it to be as well. So you hate to see it. But yeah, we were starting to talk about the Frieza thing. You were looking for. Did you look up the Frieza, whether it's the buffed version or not for Global? Because that's something.
No, I'm gonna find the stats.
I'm not too sure, but it's good. Going back to what we were saying, it's good for that to come out now because going back to AGL Bardock, I feel like them dropping that event now kind of gives you a reason to use AGL Bardock, right? Try him out in that event. You've got a Wicked Bloodline enemy. He gets extra buffs in both of his forms. And then potentially after that, you might not actually ever even use them again. So it's kind of cool for them to drop that a little bit early for Global. Gives us a little bit of extra content for next week. I believe it does drop with a bunch of category missions as well. So it already comes out with a couple of different missions. So if you want to run it with a few different teams, get all of those missions done or spread those out over like the rest of the week as we wait for other stuff to come out. The one thing I actually do remember, because I was looking up information when I was trying to figure out when the next World Tournament for Global was potentially going to be. I know last year the Part 2 LR released on the 20th of June. So if we're getting the Frieza stuff coming out this coming Wednesday, that's the 12th. The Wednesday after that is the 19th. So potentially a week after we get the Frieza event. And I think we get like a DB story revamp with the Goku. It's like that Goku giving Frieza the energy support memory. Potentially the week after that is when we're going to then get the Part 2 LR stuff as well. So a few things upcoming on JP and Global. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think by next week, my prediction is that the Super EZA for Physical Goku Black will release next week.
Ooh.
That's my thought. So
okay,
interesting.
Now that's one of those things. Do you think, as well? I think we talked about this a little bit last week, but we can revisit it here quickly as we go towards the final sections. But do you think that JP or Global, I should say, is going to get the Part 2 LR that JP gets, and potentially get the Super EZA for Goku Black as well, or is Global going to get Captain Ginyu?
I think it's possible that they get both Captain Ginyu and Kefla, or I keep saying Kefla. I'm like speaking into existence, but Captain Ginyu and the
leaking
GP Part 2 LR.
It's leaking LR
I think
Kefla.
I think it's part. It's very likely that those LRs could be just Part 2 and Global, and the reason why is because we talked about last week. But again, there's Global's technically is ahead by a coin or something like that, or Global has like an extra coin because of the fact that the True Might Goku was also a pity banner on the Global version. So in order to allow Global to catch up, right, they'll just remove one banner essentially, so that the both versions will be on the same coin essentially from there on out. And I think that will make the most that could make sense, or they could just not care and be like, "Yeah, Global is just gonna be in the
I was gonna say,
right?
I could see that being one of those things that they just don't care, right? And Global just is a coin ahead, because I guess it doesn't really make a huge amount of difference in the.
We say that, but then it's a thing where Global also moves the battlefields ahead. They seem to care about that when they technically didn't have to. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I think but I guess if it's on the same banner, I guess it'd be a thing of there would be two options you could choose in the banner. Like imagine if you get double the amount of the limited coins. I don't know, something like that could happen. Maybe you get limited coins.
That'd be crazy. Like you only had to hit the pity limit like once, but you could get both of them. That'd be insane.
Yeah, it's like there's like crazy perks essentially where for summoning, and then you get like an extra few coins or something like that, like just given to you. And then after you reach the limit of reaching 200 coins, then you would essentially have the equivalent of 400. That'd be crazy. Yeah. But I don't know. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But I think that it's not impossible. But again, it's Global, and they seem like they don't even care. So, what else?
Yeah, so that actually does lead us into the last thing that I had to talk about for this week, which, you know, we kind of have mentioned it now, and someone mentioned it in the chat. I hadn't actually realised until I was setting up everything for the week that this happened since the last episode, because I've made tweets about it, I made a video about it, I know Truth made multiple videos about it, and a lot of people weren't happy with his the angle that he took for it. But that is, of course, the situation with Battlefield on Global, where Global has skipped a number of battlefields in order to catch up to JP. Of course, we're not fully caught up, but we are on the same set of enemies that are available on JP, obviously just with the different typings. And this has led to a fairly large deficit in the battlefield memories. Someone did mention as well, of course, the fact that, you know, every time there's a battlefield reset, you get a bunch of stones as well. So by having less battlefields, that means less stones in total. But yeah, this was the first time for me. I mean, there's not been a lot of stuff in the Battlefield shop that's been worth getting. I've never wasted my points on like random stuff. I did get the stamina upgrades because, I mean, those are pretty good. And I've got, you know, all of the Battlefield LRs so far. Although, funnily enough, before Barbie and Deborah, I only had them at 55%. I only bought the extra copies of them when we found out they were getting an EZA. And then, yeah, the tweets that I made that I shared under like a few of the Global posts over those next couple of days was that we basically now got to the point where I actually could not EZA Barbie and Deborah because I couldn't afford to buy all of their medals.
That, yeah.
So yeah, and I've done every single battlefield since the first one on Global. My box has always been at the level that I've been able to fully complete Battlefield. I've always done those weekly missions that we get every Monday, where it's like beat 3 stages and you get another, I think it's like 6,000 points or something like that. I've done those like every week since they were added as a thing. And yeah, I was not able to EZA Barbie and Deborah, which is kind of annoying because obviously in two parts, like they pretty decent from what I remember when we talked about when they came out on JP, and then obviously as a content creator, of course, I want to be able to do a video using them. But yeah, I can't EZA them, and with the amount it will cost to buy the remaining medals, I actually won't be able to get their medals until the next full battlefield reset, which won't be for like another month or so. And then by that point, they'll have added in a couple of extra copies of GT Freezer and Cell, which I mean, they suck anyway, but like, I won't be able to get them. So what are your guys' thoughts on the situation? Because I know even on JP, right, like the currency is not like free flowing, right? You have to be, you can't just buy whatever you want out of the shop. So I think the general consensus and the way that I kind of lean for this is whether they've skipped them or not. You would think that if they're going to have this very limited currency that you can only get a certain amount of per like every month, you'd think you would make it so that you can actually get all of the things that are available in the shop. But I don't know what your guys' thoughts are, whether you have all of the LRs, maybe you didn't get like full copies of them. What are your thoughts on the whole Battlefield points thing?
I think that
Oh no, you can go ahead.
yeah, when it comes to the Battlefield points, I feel like it's a thing where it's always been an issue. It's just that it's really exemplified now with the sync coming into place. So I'm actually gonna make a video about this later, but like one question I think you guys should ask to the producers about, the producer layer that's gonna come on July is about that. It's like I forgot exactly how I worded it, but it's a thing where you should ask it like this, where it's with the recent acceleration of releases on the global version in relation to Ultimate Clash, there is not enough time to like occur as many Battlefield currency as compared to the Japanese version. Will there be a way to make up for the loss of Battlefield currency with the rapid release of a new Battlefield or Ultimate Clash, Awakenings, etc.? I think that's a question that we should generally ask and bring up to their attention because of the fact that it's kind of, I think in general we should get more Battlefield currency, but especially for the circumstance, Global should get the extra currency that's available. I think that just be the right thing to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, it's always been like even on JP, the currency is definitely not abundant. I know for me, like I have basically never spent my Battlefield currency on anything except for the LRs and the like EZA medals for said LRs. Because I've always been like, well, why would I bother spending it on any of this other stuff when, I literally like can barely afford to get just the actual units as it is. And obviously I would prefer to have a new character to be in the box over, a bunch of Kais or whatever other item that is there. So I think that there always really hasn't been enough currency. Like with other currencies in Dokkan, there's either always a way to farm it or they just give you so much. Obviously, we're not talking about Dragon Stones, but like, they always just give you so much that it's like, it doesn't really matter if you kind of, I don't want to say be wasteful, but you know what I mean. It's
you can pick up the odd thing here and there and it doesn't make a huge difference.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that is definitely not the case with Battlefield. Like you have to be very frugal with how you're using your currency. So I think the fact that Global is getting shafted out of a lot of that currency at the moment, seemingly, is a pretty big L because it makes me wonder then, well, are they going to, like give that currency in another way? As in, like, are they going to like do like a super Battlefield or something where like they give like all the extra currency that Global didn't have, or are they gonna do like a rerun type of thing where they quite literally just like have all the battlefields that are just gonna happen like after, or are they just going to say screw it and not care, right? I would hope that it would not be the latter, because I think that would be pretty ridiculous and honestly very like not fair to global players for sure. However, I do think that unfortunately it's not out of the realm of possibility necessarily, considering, global be global. But and also it's so weird because I swear like sometimes they treat it like global players don't know about the JP version, and then sometimes they tweet it as like, oh yeah, here's the JP version in comparison to global. Like, it's so weird because back in the day it used to be like they just pretended that global players didn't know about JP, but now it's like, well, no, duh, they know, right?
Yeah, they mention it all the time in like the global producer letters and stuff like that. Like, yeah, they mention the two different versions like all the time now. So
exactly, but sometimes it feels like I don't know, they're really weird about it because I swear like sometimes they just, I don't know, they like to play pretend or something that it's like, oh yeah, no, JP, what's that? We don't know anything about that. And then they just kind of ignore it when it's like convenient to them sometimes. Yeah. So I don't know. It's a little bit weird, to be honest with you. I definitely hope that global gets, some kind of way to be able to get the currency, because as it stands, global players are going to be really screwed when it comes to getting these LRs. If they don't give out, the proper amount of battlefield memory to compensate. So I'm really hoping that they do, but only time will tell on that, I suppose. It's such an easy thing too. All they have to do is quite literally just, like run the battlefields. Like,
they could up the amount of points you get. They could reduce the cost of the things in the shop.
I've seen a thing where someone said, what if we just are able to farm battlefield infinitely? Because the thing is that even if they increase the prices and everything like that, and decrease the prices and increase the cost of what you obtain, I think that it's still going to be nigh impossible for people. Like, I brought this up last time, but let's say someone started the game last year, it's literally impossible to get anything, and it will continue to be, even if they increase the currency we get and decrease the price of the shop, unless they do it by such an amount where it's like you almost don't have to play Battlefield at all. They have to do it where you could just farm it as much as you want. I think, honestly, even if it's a decreased cost, if you could do it as many times as you would want to, and then just be able to buy out the shop, that would be probably the best case scenario, right?
Yeah, because it's not like I was just gonna say, it's not like the units are like, these LRs are like the best units in the game. So if you farm enough medals and buy all of them, then you've got this like crazy advantage or anything, right? So yeah, it's not like you get a massive buff to your account if you have all of that stuff. So
I think like a good idea could be, instead of just having these sets of bosses, they should just have like these like one at a time sets. They should just put like a whole couple of like different sets. Like, let's say there's like 5 sets of different bosses that can like mix and match. Every time you clear the battlefield, it mixes and matches some of these bosses randomly, so that you never really get the same battlefield every time you play, so that the replayability of the stage is a lot better and stuff like that. But
yeah, I agree. Because if you're a newer player, or even if you started early and you bought like, because early on there weren't a lot of LRs. If you're somebody, even if you were playing it right from the beginning, you decided to buy that like Super Saiyan 2 Goku and Majin Vegeta, then it's like, well, now good luck ever being able to afford everything else in the shop, because you just bought some like other thing with your points, which is kind of stupid. And people have said, when I complained about it originally, people were saying like, oh, well, why were you buying all of the LRs? And it's like, well, they're putting the extra copies. They're putting the extra copies in the shop, and then they're giving them EZAs. So it's like they're essentially telling you to get them, but then they're not giving you the currency to get them. So very dumb. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully it will be addressed. Maybe if we do make enough noise. Like Minato said, there is that post from the global side asking for questions in the lead up to the anniversary that will be answered in the July producer letter. So do go ahead and respond to that post if you are on Twitter. And yeah, put these kind of questions in there. Every time there is a survey, or anytime they ask for any feedback and stuff like that, those are the opportunities to mention all of this stuff. Because if all we ever do is complain about it to each other on Twitter and on the podcast and stuff like that, but we never actually put it in these things that they do every now and then obviously they're never going to see them. So do go ahead and fill in that stuff if you do get the opportunity. So we are going to move on into the final segment here. Just to remind you guys, if you do want to get any of those shout outs or any support or anything like that in here, we will be reading all of those out after this, what is the second to last segment and a lot of people's favorite segment in the show. All of that stuff will get read out at the very end. So make sure you get those in before we get to that point. But that means we are moving on to the trash takes segment of the show. Now, I went for one this time that is sort of on topic. It kind of covers a lot of the things that we're talking about. I feel like this is one of those ones that could lean very heavily towards one decision, but maybe this time it's not going to be an L. We'll see. So this one that I picked for this week, these guys haven't seen this one yet, so here it is up on the screen. This actually comes from our boy Annie, who I think is in the chat or was at some point. So he said, announcing the sync during the Worldwide Celebration 2023, it was one of the worst decisions Dokkan has made. It has made this time period completely dreadful, while they've done nothing unit-wise except Rosé for it. It should have been announced during Golden Week or the May producer letter. So
this is a trash take?
Wow, that's the thing, right? Who knows? So I'm obviously I'll save my thoughts since I was the one that picked it, but in terms of not just whether agreeing or disagreeing with the take, but expanding on specifically what they've said, if you do agree with this, which I feel like most people will, but I thought it would give us the discussion to or give us the opportunity to have the discussion about how maybe you think they should have handled it, or if they were going to announce it this early, what should they have done? Any of that kind of stuff. I'll get the poll set up to go in the chat. But yeah, Theo, why don't you start us off here? Give us your thoughts on Annie's take here.
This is an Annie W. My boy has been dragged through the mud enough recently, so we gotta give the boy a W. So when it comes to this take, yeah, I completely agree with this. I think that this is honestly like a classic case of just announcing something too early. This happens with a lot of like video game announcements and different things related to video games and stuff, where a game gets announced way too early, whether that be because like the developers think that it will be done sooner, or maybe some higher power of the the businessmen at the round table in the suits telling them that they need to announce it earlier or something like that, or just whatever the case may be. All of this like conundrum with all the shenanigans related to the sync could have so easily been solved if they just would have not announced it when they did, and they would have just announced it like basically now, right? Because that would have solved so many issues in the way of just, for one, right? Obviously, we would be a lot better off in terms of like Annie said. I completely agree that this has been one of the most like dreadful times in Dokkan, especially in the community, right? It's like all of the decisions they've made, basically nothing has been going towards the sync, where it like doesn't really show like they're making any progress. I feel like people would be a little bit happier with the fact that they announced it, and then they've kind of been giving us a little bit of drip feeding. If they decided to like actually show with actions louder than words type beat, where they would have some things in the game where you see that and you go, okay, clearly this is a step in the right direction for the sync, but they ain't done that. And that's pretty clear that they have not done that. And so I think it also has felt very like misleading, and honestly has given me a lot less faith in Dokkan, to be honest with you, because they've also been like giving us little like, oh, it's going to be happening now. It's going to be happening now. It's going to be happening now. And then nothing has come of it, right? Where basically, it feels like for a couple of different celebrations, they told us that we're going to be getting new info, and there has just not been any new info, which is honestly very disappointing and frankly feels kind of disrespectful to the player base that they're sort of just like stringing us along. So yeah, for me, this is definitely a W take for Annie. I absolutely think that it should have been announced during Golden Week or the May producer letter, or just even during 9th anniversary itself, right? Like, I know the whole thing why they announced it for Worldwide was because the theme was connection and they wanted to be all cutesy with it. But I don't care about your wishy-washy nonsense, Omatsu. Just give me the sync when it's more appropriate to announce it. That's all I got.
So Minato, any other thoughts?
I just think that there are a lot of people who are like, oh, you know, it's fine them announcing this early, but they should have had like a plan. Well, yeah, the reason they didn't have a plan is because they announced it too early. That's the whole thing, right? The whole point is that they shouldn't have announced it without having a plan. They clearly did not have a plan about what was going to happen. Very clearly, because we got literally nothing until a few months later, and then we still don't know. And it's gonna be almost a year, and we still have nothing. We don't know anything. There's nothing. Like, who cares about knowing it's coming? I mean, I think a lot of people were expecting it anyways, to be really fair. And it's a thing of, it's nice in a sense, you know what's coming, and it's something you can anticipate. But it's such a big announcement without having any information at all. People are going to be confused. People are going to be waiting. And it's a thing where if they really wanted people to still be excited about it, announcing it as the closer it's announced to when it's happening, if it's going to be really good, something like this, huge like this, the more hype people are going to be. As time fades out, people are just going to be more disappointed, more waiting, especially with no information, right? So definitely W take. They shouldn't have announced it so early. I think announcing it literally like at the end of Golden Week. Imagine like at the end of Golden Week we got an announcement and it's like it's going to be coming summer of this year. We'll give more details throughout the next few months, and then we got the details sprinkled through like a 2-month time frame rather than a 10-month time frame. That's way better, you know. But
yeah, because
they would have had more of a plan, got more concrete. Sorry, that's all I'd say.
Yeah, because also what's funny is because it's happened before in the past, like if they hadn't announced the sync at all until now, right? Like let's say this most recent producer letter that we just got, people would have just put some of these shenanigans down to like the typical thing that happens sometimes, right? So like Global came out as a surprise, Rosé came out as a surprise Global first, and so everybody sees that and goes, okay, they're doing this because it's going to help out the sync in like one way or another, which we already knew about. But then he comes out on JP, gets buffed, gets a banner unit, gets a part 2 LR, gets the super EZA, and then it brings us back around to, well, why did they do it this way when this doesn't build up towards the sync? Whereas if they hadn't announced the sync, then I guess people probably wouldn't have been as disappointed, because this kind of stuff has happened in the past, right? Where we get a random global first, and then when it comes out on JP, the content is slightly different, and you know, we would just kind of have to just take those licks, especially as the global players, and just be like, well, you know, this is what happens sometimes. I guess things will be better once, if the games ever sync, which is something that people had talked about for years. And then if they announced at the end of Golden Week, it's like, okay, well, actually we are going to sync the versions and it's going to be happening within the next like 3 months. Like that would be super hype, because I mean, we all know, like we were there when the sync was announced in the first place. Like it was super hype, people that have wanted it for a long time, you know, people got incredibly hyped, and we've compared it to this before. I think we even mentioned in a previous episode, they just did the same thing with version Z, where they announced it way super far in advance, which then led people having all this time to like speculate about exactly what it's going to be, how they're going to do it, and then we don't hear anything for ages. And then obviously when version Z did happen, it was like some very minor like UI upgrades and like a new tutorial and a free LR, and that was basically it. It wasn't like this massive game-changing update or anything, which some people had speculated that it could be. So yeah, I think, again, definitely, I did put in the chat, right, it's funny enough, it's not 100% W take, so I did put in the chat, if you voted L take, let us know why. Ronaldo said, I believe the way they're inserting things towards the sync is the wrong way to process the scheduling of everything. Announcing it during Worldwide was the way to go, to establish a roadmap on their end and let the consumers know of any plans for it. I think the thing is, the take is not so much announcing it then was a terrible idea, 100%, like black and white, it always would be a bad idea. I think it's kind of, the take is more so looking at where we are now, announcing it then was a terrible idea because they've basically not done anything to build up towards it, right? Like they could have announced it in the worldwide celebration last year and then had clear updates with like a clear roadmap. Like people in chat were joking about them posting that same roadmap multiple times that didn't really show like anything.
I hate that stupid thing.
They could have announced it worldwide 2023 and then still done a good job of implementing like, here's why we're doing this and this is when this is going to happen and all that kind of stuff, but they didn't do that. So I would say I definitely agree. 100% L take. I think with stuff like this, now that we've seen this happen in twice, but we'd already seen it happen with version Z, this is the kind of thing that's something that generates this massive level of hype and gets people super excited and speculating about what could potentially happen. This is the kind of thing that you drop like maybe a few months before it happens, right? Or you drop it with a very, very clear plan of what you're going to do. And unfortunately, they did not do either of those things. So I would say that this is a W take for sure from our boy Annie. Shout out to him. Shout out to God Goku. And he always likes the God Goku mentions. Actually, I think I mentioned God Goku earlier when I was talking about Bardock's team. But yeah.
My boy needed a W after last week, so I'm glad you picked the W take for him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is the thing, right? I don't know if, I mean, I wonder if, you know, they must know, because we talk about all the time how they must see sometimes what the community is going on about and stuff like that. So I feel like they know that the sync is a super like hype thing that when it was announced, people would go crazy. So it's like, did they announce it then to get that like almost like cheap boost? And then they actually weren't really ready to kind of announce it because they didn't have everything set in stone. I don't know, but there you go. So, I mean, obviously there were issues in and of the process. I just feel like, you know, if they planned it a year in advance and then ran into some technical, like they ran into some unexpected difficulties and things like that, that's probably another good reason why it shouldn't have been announced as early, right? They could have been working on things behind the scenes. And we don't know how much they were working on behind the scenes before they announced it, to be fair. But yeah, it's definitely been a bit of a weird one. So shout out to Annie. We'll end the poll there. It has come out to being majority W take, which is probably expected. 78% versus 21%, because YouTube can't math and that adds up to 99. But shout out to everyone that took part in the poll. As we always say, if you're listening back to the episode on Spotify or watching the VOD, do come out to the episodes live if you can at some point, and you can take part in the poll and let us know what you guys think about the takes as well. So that means we are now going to be able to move on to the very final section of the show here and wrap things up with all of the shout outs and super chats donations from you guys during this episode. So I'm just going to get these up here. For some reason, the chat is taking ages to load. Okay.
Chat broke.
I know, right?
YouTube be YouTube.
YouTube is definitely YouTubing. I literally cannot get the super chats to come up, so that's great. Let me refresh this quickly. This has been the another great episode of technical difficulties. 41 episodes in, and we're still. Oh, there we go. Okay, so shout out to Philip Rodriguez for the $5 super chat. Of course, they came up, and now it's refreshing. So now I can't actually read it. Good times.
We love YouTube.
We do. YouTube be YouTubing. Right. Is it going to load properly now? There we go. So Philip Rodriguez with the $5 super chat. What justifies unit buffs? Devs really had the power to adjust Bardock's kit to match everything else. I mean, yeah, like there's been issues in the past, I think, where units were announced. Was it like physical Go tanks, I think, where there was so much backlash? I think STR LR Vegito Blue was one as well. Where there was so much like public outcry on Twitter and stuff that they actually did buff the unit before they came out. But other than that, it's like a very rare thing, right? Like it's not something that Dokkan does very often. And unfortunately with Bardock, if that sort of change was going to happen, it would have happened when he came out on JP. So unfortunately for Global, I guess we're just kind of stuck with him the way he is. But maybe we'll get some low class warrior buffs at some point. I don't know. But yeah, unfortunately, Bardock is probably not going to get any buffs anytime soon. So, but shout out to Philip Rodriguez, the $5. We have Drace with the $2 super chat. He says, thoughts on what LR Super EZAs will be like? So, of course, we know they said LRs and Dokkan Fest exclusives only for Super EZAs, at least for now. If you guys had to pick one or just maybe guess who it could be, who do you think will be the first LR to get a Super EZA?
Ooh, that's a good question.
So
we gotta be talking like old heads, right? And we have to say like what unit is almost like unusable. Because I feel like even though obviously like the OG 90% LRs like are certainly not as good as they were, you know, when they got an EZA or when they came out, they're still usable in like certain content, I suppose, right? Like you can still find uses for them, I guess. I don't know. I would say even funny enough, I swear some of the 100% are like more
in
useless
my opinion,
than the 90s.
I think it's just going to be LR Goku Frieza again. They did Super Saiyan 3 Goku because he was the first Super EZA. Then they could just do LR Goku and Frieza. I feel like, you know, a tournament of power kind of celebration.
That would be sick, but I feel like they're too new.
Still. Not really. They were still the first Super EZA. They were still the first LR EZA that happened.
Because they were the first. It was weird that they were the first one because they obviously were not the first LR or anything. So
they might just do it.
I guess that's fair. I don't know. Ironically enough, I don't think it would be that hype, but like the first character that comes to mind for some reason is LR Bojack. I feel like that guy.
I mean, they could also do.
His Super would be great.
Yeah,
they could do Super Saiyan 2 into Gohan, right?
Yeah,
he was the first LR that
that's
really
what I was thinking. The STR Bojack doesn't have an EZA, right?
No.
Nope.
So...
Okay, so there you go. STR Bojack, Super EZA for in Bojack. There you go.
I don't know if there was Super EZA in Bojack that early though. Like you got his EZA last year.
Was it last year?
Damn. Yeah.
I think it could be.
Year. What?
I think there's the possibility that it could be Prime Battle Super Saiyan Goku. That would be kind of cool, right? The first Prime Battle.
Actually, it was. It was in 2022 December.
Okay.
Right. But it was 2023 global. So.
Yeah. So imagine they do. Imagine they do Tech Super Saiyan Goku Prime Battle Super EZA, and then to do his, because I guess it'd be the first time it was a free-to-play unit getting one, so you'd have like a Super Extreme Z area, and you'd only be able to use the EZA Prime Battle LRs to do the event. That'd be kind of cool, right? In the same vein as the way his old events were. But yeah, I could see Super Saiyan Goku, the first Prime Battle LR. I could see him being the first LR Super EZA. So, but yeah, a couple of different options. It's interesting because, of course, Super EZA's only changed the passive. But, I mean, for most LRs, they kind of make up for it if you don't get defense on Super with the passive. So, I think that will be very interesting to see. There's a couple of different options. Gohan, Prime Battle Goku, or even Goku and Frieza. There's all fairly good reasonings behind why they could be the first one. So I guess we will have to wait and see. Then we had a $2 super chat from Philip Rodriguez. This was after Theo's she said, Theo survived the shattering. Welcome back. So yeah, it wouldn't be an episode of the Slot 1 Super Podcast if there weren't some technical difficulties. Then we have Weeb of Class with the $10 super chat. He says, what Super EZA should people be looking forward to but aren't talking about? I never see people talking about STR Omega and how much potential he has as a support and a free 40% attack debuffer. Yeah, for sure. I think he could certainly be very interesting in the future. What about you guys? Is there a Super EZA? Is there a Dokkan Fest that you don't see people talk about much for a Super EZA?
That's honestly a decent one.
Mine is literally STR Omega. So if I had to pick another one, probably Tech Beerus.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Ooh,
oh, no, never mind.
That's a really
STR
good one.
Cell.
Oh, okay, yeah. Instead of
that's
the Tech
also
Cell. That's a good
one
pick.
Too.
I'm
Yeah,
trying to
I
think
like
of
that
like
one.
an older Dokkan Fest exclusive. Because funnily enough, I got excited the other day when somebody mentioned it in chat, and I don't know why I'd never thought of it, considering me of all people, right, with my branding and everything. Somebody was like, "Oh, imagine if Marseillan got a Super EZA," but unfortunately, he's not a
That
Dokkan
would be
Fest,
sick.
so
He's not a Dokkan
he's
Fest,
probably not
yeah.
ever going to get
Yeah.
one. But that'd be awesome if he was usable again. But probably not.
I
gonna
hope they
happen.
do.
Um,
Like I hope they take feedback, because I'm sure that that's something that people will say in like producers letters. And if that's something that you want, those of you in chat, that is definitely something that you should like mention. Is that if you want like characters to Super Easy that aren't Dokkan Fests, definitely let them know that, because you know it's never going to happen unless we say to them that we want it. So
yeah, true.
hopefully, if there's enough outcry, they'll do it. But we'll see. Probably not like anytime soon, because I'm sure that they want to focus on Dokkan Fest first. But you know,
I think in terms of one that is actually a Dokkan Fest, I don't know one that necessarily people don't talk about, because obviously for me, I've always loved Super 17. AGL Super 17 was probably the best aging 120 lead, so his Super EZA has the potential to be very good. But then I feel like he's one that, you know, people aren't necessarily overlooking. I feel like people are excited for his potential Super EZA. Super Saiyan 3 Broly's a funny one as well, because they messed up his release, they messed up his EZA. The Super EZA is the final chance for him to actually potentially be good. So it'd be kind of awesome if his Super EZA was actually really good, but I guess we will have to wait and see. But yeah, Physical Goku Black should hopefully be the next one. Should hopefully get announced sometime within the next week or so for JP. Maybe it'll come out on Global at the same time. Who knows? Because otherwise, when else is it going to come out if it's part of the Rosé celebration on JP? But I guess we shall wait and see. All the Super EZAs, I would say so far, we're kind of 3 for 3 with them all being very good. So yeah, we'll have to see what Goku Black is going to be like. And then last but not least, we have a last minute one here from JC Gamer for the $2. It says, do you think physical Super Kaioken Goku is ever going to get an EZA? Because of course he's different on Global and JP. So I know we've talked about this before in the past. It's kind of a weird one because obviously him and the Pycon are different on both versions. I've always really liked that Super Kaioken Goku, so I would like him to get an EZA, but I don't know how they're gonna handle that if they do actually do it. So, because their stats are different as well, aren't they? So even if they make their EZA, if they give him an EZA and make the EZA exactly the same on both versions, the JP one will technically still be slightly better because he has higher stats. Which is not the end of the world as long as they make the EZA good enough that the global one is still competitive. But yeah, what do you guys think? Do you think we'll see them EZA anytime soon? Because there's of course the Pycon as well. But
yeah, I think
so.
it should happen sooner
yeah,
than later. I feel like
I just don't know what celebration it would be in.
yeah, I could imagine. You imagine we'll just get like a random filler Dokkan Fest, and we'll actually get a Dokkan Fest Super Saiyan Kaioken Goku or something. That would be kind of cool.
That would be sick.
EZA for AGL Pycon. Give those two guys EZAs. That'd be
awesome.
kind of cool. But yeah, hopefully one day. But I guess we'll see. So that is going to do it for this week. We appreciate you guys, everyone who did contribute, everyone who showed up to the streams as well, everyone who's listening to this back, whether it's on Spotify, whether it's watching the VOD, all of you guys that came out for episode 41 of the Slot 1 Super Podcast. Like I say, next week there'll be a few extra things out on both versions of the game. We might at that point have some information about the Part 2 LR or Physical Goku Black's Super EZA. So a few more things to talk about coming up next week for episode 42. So that is going to wrap us up for this week. I have been the Masked Ningen. Shout out to my co-hosts Minato's Flash and Dokkan Assets. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and we will see you all next week. Peace out.
Have a good one.